The wrench slipped from Leland's hand and bounced across the oily floor as his boss's voice exploded like a gunshot through the garage. "Get out, you damn fairy. I don't employ perverts who cozy up to biker trash." Leland stood frozen, the echo of the words ringing in his ears louder than the rev of any engine he'd ever worked on. His hands, still greasy from the Harley he'd just finished tuning for Grant Thompson, hung useless at his sides. Mr. Harlan, the owner of Rusty Wrench Auto, jabbed a thick finger toward the door, his face purple with rage. "I saw the way you two were talking, laughing like old buddies. I run a family business here in Elmwood, not some kind of whatever this is. Pack your tools and go. Now." Grant had already roared off on his freshly repaired bike minutes earlier, unaware that his simple request for a quick fix had just cost Leland everything. The rest of the crew stared, some smirking, others looking away in awkward silence. Leland's chest tightened as the reality crashed over him. At 28, he'd spent 6 years keeping his head down in this conservative Illinois town, fixing cars and trucks for folks who didn't ask questions as long as the work was good. Now one conversation with a member of the Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club had shattered that fragile peace. He swallowed hard, grabbed his battered toolbox, and walked out into the bright afternoon sun without a word. The parking lot felt too open, too exposed. His beat-up Ford waited like an old friend, but even it couldn't carry away the shame burning in his gut. What would his dad say? What would the whole damn town say? Leland slid behind the wheel, started the engine, and drove away from the only job he'd ever known, the weight of unspoken truths pressing down harder than ever before. File 1. Leland drove straight home to the modest ranch house on Maple Street where he'd lived his whole life. The elm trees lining the road blurred past as his mind replayed the morning. Grant had pulled in just after 9, leather vest creaking as he swung a long leg off the custom black Harley. "She won't hold idle right," he'd said, voice rough but polite. "Heard you're the best wrench in Elmwood." Leland had nodded, professional as always, and got to work. They talked shop, cams, exhaust, the satisfaction of making something run smooth again. Grant's laugh had been easy when Leland cracked a joke about bikers and their toys. Nothing more. But Mr. Harlan had watched from the office window, and later that phone call from a customer who'd seen them chatting must have sealed it. "I ain't raising no flags in my shop," the boss had snarled before the firing. Now Leland killed the engine in his driveway and sat there, staring at the faded American flag his father still hung every Memorial Day. Inside, the house smelled of coffee and old wood. His dad, retired from the mill and nursing bad knees, looked up from the newspaper at the kitchen table. "Home early, son?" Leland dropped his toolbox with a thud. "Lost the job, Dad." The old man set the paper down slowly. "What did you do?" Leland hesitated, the truth lodged in his throat like a broken piston. "Boss said I was too friendly with a customer. A guy from the Wolves." His father's face hardened, the same look he'd worn when Leland came home from high school with a black eye for not fighting back against bullies. "You stay away from those thugs. And keep your nose clean. This town's small. People talk." Leland nodded, retreating to his room before the conversation could dig deeper. He flopped onto the bed, staring at the ceiling cracks he'd memorized since childhood. Growing up here had meant learning to hide parts of himself early. Little league games where he cheered louder than anyone. Church picnics where he smiled at girls his mother pointed out before she passed. No one knew. Not his dad. Not his old high school buddies who still grabbed beers at the VFW on Fridays. The secret had kept him safe, but safe felt a lot like lonely now. His phone buzzed. A text from coworker Mike. "Sorry, man. Harlan's on a tear. Said something about you and that biker." "You good?" Leland didn't reply. Instead, he scrolled through old photos, stopping on one from last summer's county fair. He'd gone alone, watched families laugh, couples hold hands. A quiet ache had settled in his chest that day, the kind that never quite left. Now it roared back louder. He wondered where Grant had ridden off to. Probably back to the clubhouse on the edge of town, where men like him didn't have to explain themselves. Leland closed his eyes, the image of Grant's easy grin lingering. Just a customer. Nothing more. But the firing had cracked something open, and he wasn't sure he could seal it again. The next morning Leland woke to silence. No alarm for work, no smell of his dad's eggs. He made coffee and sat at the table scrolling job listings on his phone. Auto shops in neighboring towns wanted experience, but none paid what Rusty Wrench had. His savings would last maybe 3 months if he was careful. The doorbell rang around 10. Leland opened it to find Mike shifting nervously on the porch, cap in hand. Figured I'd stop by. Harlan's telling everyone you got too chummy with that Wolf guy. Said it was bad for business. Leland leaned against the doorframe. I fixed his bike. That's my job. Mike shrugged. You know how it is here. Folks see a leather vest and they think trouble. Plus, the way you talk sometimes. Soft. People notice. The words landed like another blow. Leland forced a laugh. Soft? Come on, Mike. But his friend wouldn't meet his eyes. Just watch yourself. Town's already buzzing. Old Mrs. Jenkins at the diner was asking questions this morning. After Mike left, Leland grabbed his jacket and headed to the garage behind the house. His own bike, a modest Sportster he'd rebuilt over 2 years, sat under a tarp. He uncovered it, ran a hand over the tank. Fixing things had always been his escape. Turning wrenches quieted the noise in his head. Today the silence felt heavier. He spent the afternoon tuning the carburetor, losing himself in the work until his dad's truck pulled in. The old man climbed out slowly, face set. Heard from the boys at the VFW. You got let go because of some biker? Leland wiped his hands on a rag. Something like that. His dad stepped closer. Son, I raised you right. Church, hard work, no nonsense. Whatever's going on, fix it. This family doesn't need more talk. The implication hung there, heavy as the humid Illinois air. Leland nodded again, but inside something shifted. For the first time the hiding felt less like protection and more like chains. He thought of Grant riding away free on that Harley, wind in his face, no one telling him who to be. Maybe that freedom was worth the risk. As evening fell, Leland made a decision. He pulled out his phone and searched for the Iron Wolves clubhouse address. Not to cause trouble, just to thank the man whose bike repair had accidentally changed everything. The road stretched dark ahead, but for the first time in years Leland felt like he was actually moving forward. 2 days later Leland pulled his Ford into the gravel lot outside the Iron Wolves clubhouse on the outskirts of Elmwood. The building was a converted barn with a hand-painted sign and rows of chrome bikes gleaming in the sun. He killed the engine and sat for a moment, heart hammering. This was probably stupid. Grant wouldn't remember him. But the need to say something, to someone who didn't look at him like he was broken, won out. He walked up to the door, boots crunching gravel. A big guy with a beard and club patch eyed him from a picnic table. Help you? Looking for Grant Thompson. Fixed his Harley the other day. The guy raised an eyebrow but nodded toward the side door. He's in the shop out back. Leland followed the path to a smaller metal building where the sound of tools clinked steadily. He stepped inside and saw Grant bent over another bike. Sleeves rolled up, tattoos snaking down his forearms. The man straightened, wiping sweat from his brow, and recognition flickered across his face. The mechanic. Leland, right? What brings you out here? Leland shifted his weight. Wanted to say thanks. We're sorry. My boss fired me after you left. Said I was too friendly or something. Grant set the wrench down, expression darkening. Fired? For fixing my bike. Leland nodded. Small town. People talk. Grant ran a hand through his short dark hair. That's bullshit. Come on, let's grab a beer. You look like you could use one. They ended up at a battered wooden table outside, cold cans sweating in the heat. Grant listened without interrupting as Leland laid out the basics. No job, worried about his dad. The whispers already starting at the grocery store. I've been in this club 15 years. Grant said finally. People assume a lot. But I know what it's like to feel watched all the time. Something in his tone made Leland look up. Grant's eyes held a quiet understanding that went deeper than club loyalty. They talked for over an hour about engines, road trips, the way certain roads made you feel alive. When Leland finally stood to leave, Grant clapped him on the shoulder. If you need work, I got a buddy who runs a custom shop 30 miles out. Might have something. And hey, don't let this town grind you down. Driving home, Leland felt lighter than he had in years. The conversation replayed in his mind. Grant hadn't pushed, hadn't judged. Just listened. Back at the house, his dad was watching TV, but the silence between them felt thicker now. Leland went to bed early, but sleep wouldn't come. He kept seeing Grant's steady gaze, the way his laugh crinkled the corners of his eyes. It scared him how much he wanted to feel that again. The next morning a text came from an unknown number. This is Grant. Shop guy's name is Ray. Tell him I sent you. Hang in there, man. Leland stared at the message longer than he should have. One simple act of kindness from a biker he barely knew had opened a door he hadn't known was closed. He replied with a quick thanks and drove to the new shop that afternoon. Ray turned out to be a no-nonsense guy with a soft spot for club referrals. Grant says you're solid. Start Monday. Pays decent, hours flexible. Leland shook his hand, relief flooding through him. But as he left, he caught sight of his reflection in the truck window. Same guy, same grease under his nails, but something behind his eyes had changed. The secret he'd carried so long felt heavier now that someone else had glimpsed the weight. And across town, Grant sat at the clubhouse bar nursing a whiskey, wondering why the quiet mechanic story had stuck with him like an unfinished tune. The city of Elmwood slept that night, unaware that two men's paths had just crossed in a way that would soon rattle every quiet street and Sunday sermon. Monday morning Leland showed up at Ray's Custom Cycles with his toolbox and a nervous energy he tried to hide. The shop was smaller than Rusty Wrench but smelled the same oil, metal possibility. Ray gave him a quick tour, introduced the two other guys, and set him to work on a vintage Indian that needed a full electrical rewire. The rhythm of the job soothed him. For a few hours he could forget the stares at the gas station yesterday or the way his dad had quietly moved his coffee mug to the other side of the table that morning. At lunch Grant's truck pulled into the lot. Leland's pulse jumped. Grant climbed out carrying a paper bag. Figured you might want real food on your first day. Burgers from the place on Route 9. They ate outside on the tailgate, talking easy like old friends. Grant shared stories about club runs through the Midwest, the freedom of the open road. Leland listened, then found himself opening up about losing his mom to cancer when he was 15. How the garage had become his sanctuary. Sounds like you built your own family out of wrenches and spark plugs, Grant said quietly. The words hit close. Leland nodded. Something like that. As the weeks passed, their lunches became routine. Grant would swing by twice a week, sometimes with a broken part from the clubhouse, sometimes just to talk. Leland started looking forward to those visits more than he wanted to admit. One Thursday afternoon rain forced them inside the break room. Grant leaned against the counter, arms crossed. You ever think about riding with us sometime? Not joining, just a day run. Clear your head. Leland hesitated. The Iron Wolves had a reputation. Loud parties, occasional run-ins with local law. But Grant made it sound simple. Maybe, he said. That night at home his dad confronted him in the kitchen. Saw you talking to that biker again at the shop. People are saying things, Leland. About you. The accusation hung unspoken. Leland set his fork down. We're friends, Dad. That's all. His father shook his head. Friends like that cost you your last job. Don't make the same mistake twice. The door to his bedroom clicked shut harder than necessary. Leland lay awake wondering how long he could keep balancing the two worlds. The next weekend Grant invited him to a club barbecue. Nothing crazy. Just food and bikes. Come see what we're really about. Leland went. The gathering was surprisingly normal. Kids running around, wives laughing, steaks on the grill. Grant introduced him around as the guy who saved my ride. No one asked uncomfortable questions. For the first time in months, Leland felt seen without being judged. As the sun set, he and Grant stood by the fence watching the horizon. "Thanks for this," Leland said. Grant bumped his shoulder lightly. "Anytime. You fit in better than you think." The simple touch lingered. Driving home under a sky full of stars, Leland realized the secret he'd guarded so fiercely was starting to feel less like a burden and more like a bridge. But bridges could be crossed both ways, and he wasn't sure he was ready for what waited on the other side. The rumors didn't stay quiet for long. Monday morning at the new shop, Ray pulled Leland aside. "Heard some talk from town. Folks saying you're hanging with the wolves too much. I don't care who you ride with as long as the work gets done. But customers might." Leland nodded, jaw tight. He threw himself into a big restoration project, losing hours in the details. That afternoon, Mike texted again. "Dude, your dad was at the diner. Looked pissed. People asking if you're one of them now." Leland deleted the message. After work, he drove to the river park where he used to go as a kid. He sat on a bench watching the water, chest aching with the weight of everything unsaid. His phone buzzed. "Grant. Heard the shop's getting heat. You okay?" Leland typed back, "Getting there." They met at a quiet diner on the county line that night. Grant listened as Leland spilled the latest. His dad's cold shoulder, the whispers at the gas station, the way old friends suddenly crossed the street. "I never asked for any of this," Leland said, voice cracking. "I just fixed your bike." Grant's expression softened. Sometimes the smallest thing starts the biggest change. "Look, I've got my own secrets. Club life expects you to be a certain way. Tough. Straight. No questions. But I've been carrying stuff too." The admission hung between them. Neither pushed further, but the understanding felt like a lifeline. The next week brought the first real test. A local newspaper reporter showed up at Ray's shop asking about the mechanic and the motorcycle club connection. Someone had tipped them off. Ray turned the guy away, but the damage was done. By evening, the story was online. Local mechanic linked to Iron Wolves after sudden job change. Comments flooded in, some supportive, most not. Leland's dad stopped speaking to him altogether, leaving notes on the fridge about groceries and bills. At the clubhouse, Grant faced his own pressure. The club president pulled him aside. "We don't need extra eyes on us right now. Keep the civilian tight or cut him loose." Grant refused. "He's a good man. That's enough." The stand cost him respect in some circles. Misunderstandings piled up fast. Mike showed up at Leland's house one night drunk and angry. "You used to be normal. Now you're choosing bikers over your own people." The argument ended with slammed doors and Leland sitting on the porch steps fighting tears. Grant found him there later. "Come crash at my place tonight. No pressure. Just quiet." Leland went. Grant's small apartment above the garage was simple. Bike parts on shelves, one framed photo of an older woman who must have been his mother. They sat on the couch watching an old western until Leland finally spoke. "I don't know how much more I can take." Grant placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "Then don't take it alone." In that moment, the air shifted. Neither moved away. The friendship had crossed into something deeper, and both men felt it. But fear kept words at bay. The city of Elmwood kept watching, waiting for the next spark. The spark came on a Friday night in late October. The Elmwood Fall Festival was in full swing downtown. Booths, music, the whole town out. Leland had agreed to help Ray with a charity bike show display. Grant showed up with a few club brothers to support. They kept distance at first, but when a drunk local started mouthing off about ferry bikers ruining the town, Grant stepped in calmly. "Walk away." The guy swung instead. Chaos erupted fast. Leland jumped between them, taking a punch meant for Grant. Blood trickled from his lip as security broke it up. Phones recorded everything. By morning, the video was everywhere, local news, social media, even the county paper. Motorcycle club brawl at family festival. Local mechanic caught in middle. Comments exploded. Some called Leland a hero for stepping in. Others blamed him for bringing that element to town. His dad finally spoke that night, voice shaking with disappointment. You chose sides. Don't expect me to watch you throw your life away. The door slammed. Leland packed a bag and left the house he'd grown up in. Grant met him at the apartment. Stay here as long as you need. The days that followed tested them both. Club members grumbled about the bad press. Ray lost 2 customers. Leland's old friends stopped answering texts. Internal storms raged harder. Leland spent nights staring at the ceiling, questioning every choice. Was protecting Grant worth losing his family? Grant wrestled his own demons, confiding late one night that he'd lost his brother to a club-related fight years ago and had been running from feelings ever since. I thought if I stayed tough enough, the rest wouldn't matter. They sat shoulder to shoulder on the couch, the space between them shrinking. A quiet decision formed. The town hall meeting the following week was packed. Residents demanded answers about the gang problem. Grant stood up first. We're not a gang. We're neighbors who ride bikes. Then Leland rose, voice steady despite shaking hands. And I'm the mechanic who fixed one of those bikes. I'm gay. That doesn't make me dangerous. It just makes me me. The room went silent, then erupted. Some clapped. Others shouted. Cameras flashed. The video went viral by morning. Reporters called. Old customers reached out. Leland's dad watched the news alone in the empty house. Tears he hadn't shed since the funeral streaming down his face. Grant and Leland drove out of town that night, windows down, the road stretching ahead like forgiveness. The city had noticed. Now it had to decide what to do with the truth. Winter settled over Elmwood with a soft blanket of snow, but the town felt different. The viral video sparked more than outrage. It started conversations. A local support group formed. Ray's shop saw a surge in business from people who admired Leland's courage. Even the Iron Wolves received invitations to community events. Grant and Leland kept their relationship private at first, learning each other through small moments, shared meals, long rides when the roads cleared, quiet talks about dreams neither had voiced before. Leland moved into Grant's apartment permanently after Christmas. His dad showed up one snowy afternoon, hat in hand. I was wrong, he said simply. Losing your mom taught me life's too short for hate. Come home for dinner sometime. The words weren't perfect, but they were a start. Leland hugged him on the porch, the first real embrace in months. Grant watched from the doorway, a small smile breaking through. Spring brought new beginnings. They rode together in the club's charity run for the local veterans hospital. Side by side, engines rumbling in harmony, the open road felt like home. Leland no longer hid. He waved at neighbors who once whispered. Grant stood taller, no longer carrying the weight of secrets alone. The misunderstandings had forged something stronger than either expected. One warm evening they parked the bikes at the same river spot where Leland had once sat alone. Grant took his hand. Never thought fixing one bike would lead here. Leland laughed softly. Me neither. But I'm glad it did. They sat watching the sunset paint the water gold, the future stretching wide and bright. Elmwood had changed because 2 men refused to stay hidden. And in that change, both found the courage to live fully. True or false? Can one act of kindness between 2 men who love men ever truly break through a town's walls of prejudice without someone losing everything?